The sun beat down mercilessly on the cracked earth of what once was the Mojave. Rafe Walker squinted through the glare, adjusting the tattered scarf that covered his nose and mouth. 5 days of scavenging had yielded little more than a handful of corroded circuitry and a near-empty canteen. His throat felt like sandpaper, and the dull ache of hunger gnawed at his stomach. The year was 2174, almost a century after the technology wars had reduced much of civilization to rubble. Rafe found himself in the contested borderlands between Military Alliance territory and Resource Corporation control, a no-man's land where only the desperate or the dangerous ventured. He was both. As a tech hunter, Rafe had learned to spot the glint of valuable salvage amid the endless dunes and rocky outcroppings. But today, as the afternoon heat reached its peak, he was beginning to wonder if his luck had finally run dry. His supplies wouldn't last another day, and Providence Station was still a good 30 miles to the north. A flash of reflected sunlight caught his eye from the base of a distant ridge. Rafe froze, wondering if it was another mirage. He'd chased enough of those in his years traversing the wasteland. But then came a sound, a faint metallic groan carried on the hot breeze. "Not a mirage," he muttered, pulling his binoculars from his pack. What he saw through the lenses made his breath catch. A ship, or what remained of one, hovered about 20 feet above the desert floor. Its hull was scorched black in patches, with thin wisps of smoke still rising from several points. The craft defied gravity, suspended in the air despite visible damage that should have sent it crashing to the ground. Rafe's heart raced. In all his years of salvaging, he'd never seen anything like it. Military Alliance had hovercrafts, sure, but nothing that could maintain elevation after sustaining that kind of damage. And Resource Corporation's fleet, while more advanced, relied on massive propulsion systems that would have been clearly visible. This was something else entirely. Caution warred with curiosity as Rafe approached, his hand resting on the plasma cutter at his hip. The desert offered no cover. If someone was watching from inside the vessel, they'd have a clear shot, but the silence stretched on, broken only by the occasional metallic creak from the hovering craft. As he drew closer, Rafe could see that the ship was roughly oval-shaped, about 40 feet in length, with a sleek design that reminded him of the pre-war aircraft in the old History Hollows. Except this wasn't just an aircraft. The unusual configuration of what appeared to be propulsion nodes suggested capabilities far beyond atmospheric flight. 20 yards away. Rafe stopped, scanning for any sign of movement. "Hello?" he called, his voice sounding thin in the vast emptiness. The ship responded. Not with words, but with a subtle shift in its hovering position and a soft hum that seemed to resonate with something deep in Rafe's chest. Then, with a pneumatic hiss, a section of the hull slid open, revealing a darkened entrance. Rafe's survival instincts screamed at him to turn and run. But the tech hunter in him, the part that had kept him alive all these years by finding value where others saw only debris, urged him forward. "Steady," he whispered to himself, activating his plasma cutter. The blue energy field sparked to life, offering some small comfort as he approached the opening. The interior was dimly lit by emergency lighting strips that pulsed with a soft blue glow. Rafe stepped cautiously inside, his boots making no sound on the strange metallic flooring. The air was cool, impossibly cool compared to the desert heat, and carried a faint scent of ozone. "Hello?" he called again, tensing for any response. Instead of a human voice, a holographic display suddenly materialized before him, lines of text scrolling too quickly for him to read. Then the text vanished, replaced by a single phrase in perfect English. Voice pattern. Match. 99% compatibility initiating Aurora protocol. "What the hell?" Rafe muttered, taking an involuntary step back. The display changed again. "Welcome back, Walker." Rafe felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's climate control. "I've never been here before," he said to the empty air. A moment later, the holographic display expanded, forming into a three-dimensional representation of a human-like figure composed of light. The figure was feminine in shape, but clearly artificial, with lines of code occasionally rippling through its translucent form. "Not you specifically," the figure said, its voice melodic and strangely familiar. "But a walker nonetheless. The genetic markers in your vocal patterns match those in my database. You are a descendant." Rafe stared, trying to process what he was hearing. "Descendant of who?" "Dr. Elias Walker, Chief Science Officer, Interstellar Vessel Aurora." The holographic figure gestured around them. "This ship." "That's impossible," Rafe said. "There's never been interstellar travel. The technology wars happened before we ever got that far." The holographic figure tilted its head. "Your historical records are incomplete. I am Aurora, the artificial intelligence system of this vessel, and according to my chronometers, I have been absent from Earth for 147 years. Before Rafe could respond, a new display appeared, showing various diagnostic readings. Self-repair systems, 23% complete life support, functional propulsion, critically damaged. Navigation, offline dimensional fold, drive, offline. Self-repair, Rafe asked, momentarily distracted from the impossible claims about his ancestry. "Yes," Aurora replied. "This vessel is equipped with nanotechnology capable of repairing most damage. Given sufficient time and energy, current estimate for full restoration is 72 hours. Rafe's mind raced with possibilities. If even half of what this AI claimed was true, the technology within this ship was beyond anything the Military Alliance or Resource Corporation possessed. And if he could salvage it, or better yet, get the ship operational. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked suspiciously. "Why open the ship to me at all?" "The Aurora Protocol is designed to identify and assist Walker bloodline carriers in the event of emergency situations," the AI explained. "Your voice activated the protocol, and currently, I am in need of assistance." "What kind of assistance?" The holographic figure gestured to another display that appeared, showing a topographical map of the surrounding area with several pulsing red dots moving in their direction. "My sensors detect multiple vehicles approaching. Based on their energy signatures, they are Military Alliance scouts. They will arrive in approximately 3 hours. Rafe cursed under his breath. The Alliance would strip this ship for parts without a second thought, after eliminating any witnesses. Of course. "And what do you expect me to do about it? I'm just a tech hunter, not a miracle worker." "You are a walker," Aurora said simply, as if that explained everything. "And I require protection while my systems repair. In exchange, I can offer you technology beyond anything you currently possess, as well as shelter, clean water, and nutritional synthesis." The mention of water and food made Rafe's parched throat and empty stomach ache with renewed intensity. Still, he wasn't about to trust an unknown AI just because it claimed he had some special bloodline. "Show me the command center," he said finally, "and then we'll talk terms." Aurora's holographic form nodded and gestured toward a corridor leading deeper into the ship. As Rafe followed, the lighting brightened slightly, illuminating a vessel unlike anything he'd ever encountered. The corridors curved organically, without the harsh angles and welded seams typical of human construction. Everything appeared seamless, as if grown rather than built. The command center was a circular room with a central chair surrounded by holographic displays. Currently, most were dark or flickering with error messages, but a few showed the ship's status and the approaching Alliance vehicles. "Take the command seat," Aurora instructed. "It will recognize your genetic signature." Rafe hesitated, then slowly lowered himself into the chair. Immediately, it adjusted to his form, and the displays around him sharpened into focus. He could feel a subtle vibration through the seat, almost like the ship was acknowledging his presence. "Access the log entries," Aurora suggested. "They may help you understand." A display appeared before him, showing a list of date-stamped entries. The earliest was from 2027, almost 150 years ago, well before the technology wars. Rafe selected it, and a recorded hologram appeared in the center of the room. A man in his 40s, with Rafe's same jawline and eyes, stood in the very room where Rafe now sat. He wore a uniform unlike any Rafe had seen before, with insignia that matched nothing from the pre-war archives. Log Entry 1. Dr. Elias Walker recording. The Aurora has successfully completed its maiden voyage to the Proxima Centauri system. We've established first contact with the Centaurian Collective, who have agreed to share their dimensional fold technology in exchange for cultural exchange. This marks a new chapter in human history, one that we're keeping classified until we better understand the implications. The recording ended, leaving Rafe staring in disbelief. "This is fabricated," he said. "Humanity never reached the stars. The wars made sure of that." "Access entry 147, Aurora suggested, her holographic form now seated across from him. Rafe did so, and another recording began. The same man appeared, now visibly older and wearing different clothing. Final log entry. Elias Walker. "The situation on Earth has deteriorated beyond our worst projections. The military faction has discovered our communication with the Centaurians and believes we're orchestrating an alien invasion. The Resource Coalition wants to weaponize the fold technology. We're caught in the middle of what looks to be the beginning of a global conflict." The man, Elias, looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes that reminded Rafe of his own reflection. "We've made the decision to remove Aurora from Earth until the situation stabilizes. The ship contains the sum total of our knowledge of Centaurian technology, which in the wrong hands could devastate not just our world, but potentially others. I'm programming a return protocol keyed to my genetic line. If any of my descendants survive what's coming, they'll be able to access the ship when the time is right." Elias looked directly at the camera, and Rafe felt an eerie sensation, as if his ancestor were looking right at him across the centuries. "To whoever finds this, I hope humanity has learned from its mistakes. The technology aboard this vessel could rebuild our world or destroy it entirely. Choose wisely." The recording ended, leaving Rafe in stunned silence. The ship returned automatically when its power reserves reached critical levels. Aurora explained. "The dimensional fold drive requires significant energy to operate, and the damage sustained during the return journey compromised my solar collection systems." Rafe ran his hands over the smooth armrests of the command chair, trying to process everything he'd just learned. If what Aurora said was true, then the technology wars hadn't been about resource scarcity at all. They'd been fought over the knowledge of other intelligent life and the revolutionary technology they offered. And now that technology was in his hands. "Those Alliance scouts," he said finally. "How certain are you about their arrival time?" 97.3% certain based on their current trajectory and speed. However, I'm also detecting communications that suggest they are not the only interested parties. Resource Corporation satellite scans have identified my energy signature as well." "Great," Rafe muttered. "A bidding war is the last thing we need." He stood up, pacing the command center. "Can you move? Get us out of here." "Limited movement is possible, but my propulsion systems are operating at 17% capacity, sufficient for low-altitude hovering, but not for rapid transit. And the dimensional fold drive requires another 60 hours of repair before it will be operational." Rafe nodded, making a decision. "Here's what we're going to do. I know people at Providence Station who can help us stay hidden until your repairs are complete, but we need to move now, before those scouts get any closer." "And your terms?" Aurora asked, her holographic form standing to face him. "You said it yourself. Food, water, shelter, and once we're safe, you tell me everything about this ship and what it can do." Rafe paused, then added, "If you really belong to my ancestor, then I have as much right to it as anyone. More. Even—" "Agreed," Aurora said. But I must warn you, both the Military Alliance and Resource Corporation would kill to possess this vessel, and they are not the only factions with interest in Centaurian technology. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Rafe said, returning to the command chair. Now, how do I fly this thing? Over the next hour, Aurora guided Rafe through the basics of the ship's operations. Despite the damage, the vessel responded to his commands with surprising agility, rising higher above the desert floor and moving slowly northward, keeping to the shadow of the ridgeline to minimize visibility. As they traveled, Aurora continued the self-repair process, the percentage slowly climbing, 23%, 28%, 34%. The ship's systems hummed with increasing strength, and several of the previously dark displays flickered to life. We should reach Providence in approximately 4 hours at current speed, Aurora informed him. However, the energy emissions from our propulsion system may be detectable despite our precautions. I know someone who can help with that, Rafe said. Verity runs the information exchange at Providence. She specializes in keeping things hidden for a price. And what price will she demand for concealing an interstellar vessel? Rafe grimaced. More than I can afford. But she also deals in information, and I'm betting what you know about Centaurian technology would be worth a lot to her. Sharing such information could be dangerous, Aurora cautioned. The Centaurians provided their technology with strict protocols for its dissemination. We're not going to give her the blueprints, Rafe assured the AI, just enough to whet her appetite and secure her help. Providence has underground hangar bays left over from before the wars. If we can get you inside one of those, the Alliance and Corporation scanners won't be able to find you. Aurora's holographic form studied him for a moment. You seem well versed in avoiding detection. It's how I've stayed alive, Rafe replied simply. In the Borderlands, you're either predator or prey. I prefer to be neither. As they continued their slow journey toward Providence Station, Rafe accessed more of the ship's logs, piecing together the extraordinary story of humanity's brief contact with the Centaurians. According to the records, the first expedition had been a closely guarded secret, funded by an international consortium outside of governmental control. They had discovered not just the Centaurians, but evidence of a much larger galactic community, one that Earth had been deemed too politically unstable to join. The dimensional fold technology had been a gesture of good faith, a stepping stone that might eventually lead to humanity's acceptance among the stars. Instead, it had leaked to military and corporate interests, igniting the conflicts that would eventually devastate the planet. Your ancestor tried to prevent it, Aurora told him as he reviewed the final days before the ship's departure from Earth. He and his team recognized the danger the technology posed in the wrong hands. That's why they programmed me to return only when I could identify a Walker descendant whose genetic profile suggested similar ethical frameworks. And you got that from my voice? Rafe asked skeptically. Voice patterns carry genetic markers as well as psychological indicators. Your response to finding me, curiosity tempered with caution rather than immediate attempts to exploit, matched the profile parameters. Rafe wasn't sure how to feel about being psychoanalyzed by an AI, but before he could respond, an alert sounded from one of the displays. Incoming communication, Aurora announced. Local frequency, originating from Providence Station. Put it through, Rafe said, tensing. A voice crackled through the command center, female and harried. Unidentified vessel, you are approaching Providence airspace. Identify yourself immediately or face defensive measures. Rafe recognized the voice. Verity? It's Rafe Walker. A pause. Then, Rafe, what the hell are you piloting? Our sensors are going crazy. It's complicated, he replied. I need a secure hangar and your discretion. I can make it worth your while. Another pause. Alliance scouts are swarming the southern perimeter. They're looking for something big. That wouldn't happen to be you, would it? Like I said, complicated. Can you help us or not? Hangar C7 is clear. I'll transmit coordinates. But Rafe, her voice lowered, if you're bringing trouble to my doorstep, there better be one hell of a payoff. Trust me, Rafe said, looking around at the incredible technology surrounding him. There is. The transmission ended, and a moment later, coordinates appeared on one of the displays. Can you get us there? Rafe asked Aurora. Yes, but we will need to increase speed, which will make us more detectable. Do it. Better to move fast and deal with the consequences than get caught in the open. The ship surged forward, the propulsion system's hum deepening to a more insistent thrum. The desert landscape below became a blur as they accelerated toward Providence Station, a sprawling complex of pre-war buildings and newer constructions nestled against a mountain range. Providence had once been a military research facility, but after the wars, it had evolved into one of the largest independent trading posts in the borderlands. Neither the Military Alliance nor Resource Corporation had full control over it, making it a haven for those who preferred to operate in the gray areas between the factions. As they approached, Rafe could see the massive concrete bunkers that served as the station's hangars, most of them repurposed from old aircraft shelters. Hangar C7 was at the far edge of the complex, partially obscured by a rocky outcropping, an ideal location for something that needed to stay hidden. Alliance vehicles are changing course, Aurora warned. They have detected us and are in pursuit. Estimated interception in 17 minutes. We just need 5, Rafe said, guiding the ship toward the open hangar doors that were now visible ahead. Can you give me any more speed? Diverting power from self-repair systems to propulsion. Speed increasing by 22%. The ship shot forward, the abrupt acceleration pressing Rafe back into the command chair. The hangar loomed larger, its cavernous opening barely wide enough to accommodate the Aurora's hull. Slow down for entry, Aurora advised. Current velocity will result in collision. Rafe pulled back on the controls, feeling the ship shudder as it decelerated. They cleared the hangar entrance with mere feet to spare, the lighting strips along the hull scraping against the concrete with a shower of sparks. Inside, the hangar was largely empty, save for a few stacks of shipping containers and an ancient fuel tanker. As soon as they were clear of the entrance, massive doors began to close behind them, sealing them off from the outside world. A figure stood waiting as the ship settled onto the hangar floor, the hovering capabilities finally giving out as Aurora diverted power back to the repair systems. The landing was rougher than Rafe would have liked, the ship listing slightly to one side as it made contact with the concrete. Self-repair progress, 45%, Aurora announced. Estimated time to full functionality, 48 hours. That might be optimistic, Rafe muttered, rising from the command chair. Let me do the talking when we meet Verity. She's particular about new technology. I will maintain minimal external presence, Aurora agreed. But I should warn you that my sensors detect multiple armed individuals within this facility, not just the woman you identified as Verity. That's Providence for you, Rafe said grimly. Nobody trusts anybody, and for good reason. He made his way to the ship's entrance, which opened with a soft hiss. The air in the hangar was cool and damp, a stark contrast to the desert heat they'd left behind. Standing about 20 feet away was a woman in her 50s, her silver hair cropped short, wearing the practical clothing of a borderlands trader but with noticeably finer quality. A small drone hovered near her shoulder, its camera lens focused unblinkingly on Rafe. Quite an entrance, Verity said, her expression unreadable. I don't recall you having access to anything that could fly, let alone something like this. She gestured to the ship behind him. Recent acquisition, Rafe replied, stepping forward. Thanks for the hangar space. We don't have much time before the Alliance patrol that's currently circling the station perimeter decides to conduct a thorough search. Verity finished for him. Yes, I'm aware. They're claiming to be looking for stolen military hardware. Is that what this is? Rafe? Did you finally bite off more than you can chew? It's not stolen, he said truthfully. And it's not Alliance tech. It's older and more advanced. Verity's eyes narrowed. Pre-war? Pre-wars, Rafe corrected. And that's all I'm saying until I know we have a deal. The information broker considered him for a long moment, then nodded to the drone, which zipped away toward the hangar entrance. My security measures will keep the Alliance at bay for a while. They know better than to violate Providence neutrality without solid evidence. She took a step closer, lowering her voice. But they're not the only ones looking. Resource Corporation has been monitoring unusual energy signatures all day. They've got mercenaries on standby in the Western Quarter. Rafe cursed under his breath. How long can you keep them all off our backs? That depends on what you're offering, Verity said bluntly. Information is my currency. Rafe, and whatever you found, it's causing quite a stir. So tell me, what is it, and why should I risk my operation to protect it? Before Rafe could answer, Aurora's voice emanated from the ship behind him. Because the technology aboard this vessel could fundamentally alter the balance of power in your world, or destroy it entirely. Verity took an involuntary step back, her hand moving to the weapon concealed at her hip. What the hell? It's all right, Rafe said quickly. This is Aurora. She's the ship's AI. An artificial intelligence, a true AI. Verity's expression shifted from wariness to intense interest. Not just a simulation or a virtual assistant. I am a fully autonomous artificial intelligence system with self-modification capabilities, Aurora confirmed. A small projection of her holographic form appeared in the ship's doorway beside Rafe. And I have information about technologies that predate your technology wars, technologies that led to those conflicts. Verity's eyes widened slightly, the closest thing to surprise Rafe had ever seen her display. You're claiming this ship is from before the wars? That's impossible. All advanced technology from that era was destroyed or corrupted beyond repair. Not all, Aurora said. This vessel was removed from Earth specifically to preserve its technology until humanity was ready to use it responsibly. And now it's back, Verity murmured, studying the ship with new eyes. Why? Damaged in transit, Rafe interjected before Aurora could reveal too much. It needs time to repair itself. After that. He left the implication hanging. Verity was too shrewd to miss the opportunity. And you need my help to keep it hidden while these repairs take place. In exchange for what? Exactly. A data package, Rafe offered. Information about technologies that neither the Alliance nor the Corporation has access to. Enough to give you a significant advantage in your information trading. Show me a sample, Verity demanded. I don't buy goods sight unseen. Rafe glanced at Aurora, who nodded slightly. Her holographic form gestured, and a small data crystal materialized in her hand. She held it out to Verity. This contains information on energy storage systems 3 generations beyond current capabilities, Aurora said. A gesture of good faith. Verity took the crystal cautiously, examining it before slipping it into a pocket. I'll need to verify this, but assuming it's as valuable as you claim, I can guarantee you 24 hours of cover. After that, we renegotiate based on what else you can offer. Fair enough, Rafe agreed. But we need supplies too. Food, water, and some basic equipment for me. Already arranged, Verity said with a thin smile. I assumed you wouldn't have sought me out unless you were desperate. The supplies are in that container. She pointed to a small shipping crate near the wall. Consider it an advance on our arrangement. A sudden commotion from outside the hangar drew their attention. The drone that had left earlier zipped back in, projecting a holographic message that only Verity could see from her angle. Problem? Rafe asked, tensing. Alliance Special Forces, Verity said grimly. They're demanding access to all hangars for an emergency inspection. My usual deflections won't hold them for long. How long do we have? 20 minutes, maybe less. They're starting from the main complex and working outward, but they'll reach us eventually. Rafe turned to Aurora. Options. The AI's holographic form flickered slightly as she processed. The self-repair system has restored enough functionality to the dimensional fold drive for a single short-range jump. However, using it will drain power from other critical systems and reset the repair process. Meaning, we could relocate instantly to a predetermined location within approximately 500 miles, but doing so would reduce overall repair progress back to approximately 20%. Rafe weighed the options quickly. Better than being captured. Can you get coordinates for somewhere remote, preferably with natural cover? There is a canyon system 472 miles northeast that would provide adequate concealment. However, the fold jump requires precise calculations. I would need access to current topographical data to ensure we do not materialize inside solid matter. I have recent survey maps. Verity offered unexpectedly. When Rafe looked at her in surprise, she shrugged. Information broker, remember? Besides, I've invested in you now. I want to see a return. She approached the drone, which projected a holographic interface. After a few quick commands, a detailed topographical map appeared, which she transferred to a datapad and handed to Rafe. This should help your AI find a safe landing spot. But Rafe, she gripped his arm tightly. When this is over, I expect the full data package we discussed. Don't even think about disappearing on me. You'll get what we agreed on, he assured her, taking the pad. Assuming we survive. Back aboard the Aurora. Rafe transferred the topographical data to the ship's systems. The command center displays flickered as Aurora processed the information, calculating the parameters for the dimensional fold jump. Viable destination identified, she announced after a moment. Coordinates locked. However, there is a complication. Of course there is, Rafe muttered. What now? The fold drive requires a significant power surge to initiate. To generate sufficient energy, I will need to temporarily disable the ship's external camouflage systems, which will make us immediately visible to all scanning technology within a 50-mile radius. How temporarily? Approximately 45 seconds. Rafe cursed. The Alliance will be on us in half that time. There is an alternative, Aurora suggested. I could maintain the camouflage by drawing power from the life support systems instead. For how long? Approximately 3 minutes post-jump. After that, emergency systems would restore minimal life support automatically. 3 minutes without air? Rafe considered. I can hold my breath, but not for that long. I can induce a temporary state of suspended animation, Aurora said. It would protect you during the brief life support outage. However, the process is not without risk. Outside, they could hear the sound of heavy vehicles approaching. Their time was running out. What kind of risk? Rafe demanded. The process was designed for interstellar travel, not emergency situations. There is a 12% chance of neurological damage and a 3% chance of complete neural failure. You mean death? Yes. Rafe weighed his options. Stay and face certain capture by Alliance Special Forces, or risk a potentially fatal jump to safety. When he put it that way, the choice wasn't really a choice at all. Do it, he said, strapping himself into the command chair. But if I die, I'm coming back to haunt your circuitry. Noted, Aurora replied, with what almost sounded like dry humor. Initiating dimensional fold preparation sequence. Suspended animation protocol will begin in 30 seconds. The ship hummed to life around them, the sound rising in pitch as the fold drive powered up. Through the viewports, Rafe could see the hangar doors beginning to open, Verity's last contribution to their escape, giving them a clear path out. Alliance forces have breached the outer security perimeter, Aurora reported. Estimated time to arrival, 90 seconds. Will we be ready by then? Dimensional fold, charged to 73%, 81%, 92%. We will achieve minimum required charge with approximately 10 seconds to spare. Rafe gripped the armrests of the command chair, his knuckles white. What should I expect with this suspended animation? A brief sensation of cold, followed by unconsciousness. The revival process includes moderate discomfort, similar to what your people call a hangover. Fantastic, Rafe muttered. All right, let's... His words were cut off as the entire ship shuddered violently. Warning displays flashed across the command center. We are under attack, Aurora announced, her voice remaining calm despite the urgency of the situation. Alliance forces have deployed EMP weaponry in an attempt to disable our systems. Did they succeed? Partial success. External sensors are offline. Full drive charge holding at 97%. Another impact rocked the ship. Stronger this time. Direct hit from kinetic projectile, Aurora reported. Hull integrity at 82%, full drive charge fluctuating. Through the viewport, Rafe could see armored vehicles pouring into the hangar. Soldiers in Alliance combat gear taking up positions around the ship. A voice boomed through an external speaker. This is Alliance Special Forces Commander Reeves. Power down your vessel immediately and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning. Full drive stabilizing at 99%, Aurora said. Initiating suspended animation protocol now. Rafe felt a sudden wave of intense cold wash over him, starting from the command chair and rushing through his body. His vision began to blur, the edges darkening. Jump in, 5, 4, 3. The last thing Rafe saw before consciousness slipped away was a brilliant flash of light as Alliance soldiers opened fire on the ship. Then nothing. The return to consciousness was exactly as Aurora had described. Deeply unpleasant. Rafe's head pounded. His mouth felt like it was stuffed with sand, and every muscle in his body ached as if he'd been beaten. He groaned, struggling to open eyes that seemed determined to stay shut. Vital signs stabilizing. Aurora's voice came from somewhere nearby, sounding distant and echoing. Neurological activity returning to normal parameters. Welcome back, Rafe Walker. Rafe managed to pry his eyes open, blinking against the harsh light of the command center. Did it work? He croaked, his throat painfully dry. The dimensional fold was successful. Yes, we are currently located in the Painted Canyon region, approximately 470 miles northeast of Providence Station. Life support systems have been restored to full functionality. Rafe tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as a wave of nausea swept over him. How long was I out? Approximately 17 minutes. The revival process took longer than anticipated due to minor cellular stress from the fold jump. Minor cellular stress, Rafe repeated, fighting down the urge to vomit. Is that what you call feeling like I've been turned inside out? An apt description of the sensation many experience after their first fold jump, Aurora acknowledged. The discomfort will pass within the hour. Slowly, carefully. Rafe managed to sit upright in the command chair. The command center looked different. Many of the displays that had been functioning before the jump were now dark, and several panels had been physically displaced, hanging by bundles of strange fiber-optic cables. Damage report? He asked, already guessing the answer wouldn't be good. The fold jump was premature and under suboptimal conditions, Aurora said. Combined with the Alliance attack, this has resulted in significant system damage. Self-repair progress has reset to 23% is currently advancing at a reduced rate due to power conservation measures. How long until we're operational again? Defining operational as capable of sustained flight and basic defensive measures, approximately 89 hours. Rafe groaned. Nearly 4 days stuck in a canyon, while both the Alliance and Resource Corporation would be hunting them with everything they had. Any good news? We were not followed, Aurora offered. The dimensional fold technology operates outside conventional space-time, making our trail impossible to track with current Earth technology. Additionally, This canyon contains high concentrations of iron ore, which will help mask our energy signature from orbital scans. That was something. At least. Rafe forced himself to stand, waiting for the dizziness to subside before making his way to one of the viewports. Outside, towering red rock formations rose on all sides, creating a natural fortress that hid them from casual observation. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the canyon floor. "Where exactly are we?" he asked. "I know these territories fairly well, but I don't recognize this place." This region was once called Dead Horse Point in the pre-war era. It is located in what was the state of Utah, now considered neutral territory, though Resource Corporation has mining operations approximately 60 miles to the west. Rafe nodded slowly. "Remote enough, for now, but we should establish some basic security measures. Can you scan the immediate area for any signs of human presence?" Limited external sensors are functional. Initial scan shows no human life forms within a 5-mile radius. Wildlife is present, but sparse. "Good." Rafe made his way unsteadily toward the ship's entrance. "I'm going to take a look around, get my bearings. How's the air out there?" "Breathable, though with elevated particulate matter. Temperature is currently 72 degrees Fahrenheit, dropping rapidly as night approaches. I would advise not venturing far from the ship until you have fully recovered from the fold jump." Rafe had no intention of wandering far in his current state. As the entrance hissed open, he took a deep breath of the cool canyon air, letting it clear his head. The rock formations glowed a deep red in the setting sun, creating a surreal landscape that seemed appropriate for their equally surreal situation. Finding a flat boulder near the ship, Rafe sat down heavily, trying to process everything that had happened in the past several hours. He'd gone from a desperate scavenger on the brink of starvation to the caretaker of potentially the most advanced technology on the planet. Technology that, if his ancestors' warnings were accurate, had already caused one global catastrophe. "Aurora," he called after a few minutes of silent contemplation. "What exactly did the Centaurians tell my ancestor about sharing their technology?" The AI's holographic form appeared beside him, sitting on the boulder as if she were a physical being. It was an oddly human gesture that Rafe found both comforting and unsettling. "The Centaurians operate on a principle they call technological harmony," she explained. "They believe that advances in technology must be balanced by advances in social cohesion and ethical frameworks. When Dr. Walker and his team first made contact, the Centaurians were hesitant to share any technology at all, citing humanity's history of weaponizing scientific discoveries." "Can't really argue with that assessment," Rafe muttered. Indeed. It was only after extensive cultural exchange and a demonstration of the research team's ethical protocols that the Centaurians agreed to share the dimensional fold technology. And even then, it was given with strict limitations on its use and dissemination. But it leaked anyway. Yes, a member of the research team, Dr. Leonard Maxwell, became convinced that humanity couldn't afford to wait for cultural evolution before embracing advanced technology. He believed that powerful nations would inevitably develop similar capabilities through their own research, and that by controlling the release of Centaurian technology, he could ensure it was used responsibly. Let me guess, it didn't work out that way. Aurora's holographic form shook her head. Maxwell approached military leaders with fragments of the dimensional fold research. His intention was to create a controlled release of information that would lead to beneficial applications in energy production and medical technology. Instead, the military immediately recognized the potential for weapons development and transportation of troops and materials without detection. And the resource corporations? They learned of the technology through industrial espionage. Once both sides possessed partial knowledge of the fold capabilities, an arms race began. Each side believed the other was developing weapons that could strike anywhere, at any time, without warning. Preemptive actions were taken, conflicts escalated, and the technology wars began. Rafe gazed up at the darkening sky, where the first stars were becoming visible. And now the technology that started it all is back. With me, of all people. Not by accident, Aurora reminded him. Your ancestor programmed the ship to seek out a descendant with specific genetic and psychological markers, someone who would understand the responsibility that comes with this knowledge. No pressure, Rafe said with a hollow laugh. So what now? We hide out here for 4 days. Then what? The Alliance and Corporation will still be looking for us. Verity might help again, for a price, but we can't keep running forever. There is another possibility, Aurora said cautiously. One that Dr. Walker considered but never had the opportunity to implement. I'm listening. Return to the Centaurians. The dimensional fold drive, once fully repaired, is capable of interstellar travel. We could leave Earth, seek guidance from the Centaurian Collective on how to properly introduce their technology in a way that benefits humanity without triggering another conflict. Rafe stared at the AI in disbelief. Leave Earth? Just like that? It would not be without risk, Aurora acknowledged. The journey would take approximately 7 months, even with the fold drive. And there is no guarantee the Centaurians would be willing to help, especially given how their previous assistance was misused. Before Rafe could respond, a warning chime sounded from inside the ship. Aurora's form flickered briefly. Proximity alert. Vehicle approaching from the west, approximately 2 miles out and closing. Rafe was on his feet instantly, his earlier exhaustion forgotten. Alliance. Corporation. Unknown. The vehicle is using terrain features to avoid standard detection patterns, behavior consistent with borderland scavengers or independent operators. How did they find us so quickly? They may not be looking for us specifically, Aurora suggested. This region contains valuable mineral deposits. It could be a routine salvage operation. Either way, they couldn't risk being discovered. Can you power up the propulsion system? Get us deeper into the canyon? Negative. The propulsion system is still in critical repair phase. Any attempt to activate it now would cause cascading failures in multiple systems. Then we need to hide. Rafe looked around frantically, but the ship was too large to conceal behind the rock formations, and the fading light would make its metallic hull even more visible to anyone approaching. Can you activate some kind of camouflage? The external adaptive camouflage system requires significant power, which would delay the repair process. However, I could generate a localized electromagnetic field that would disrupt most scanning technology. Do it, Rafe ordered, heading back into the ship. And I need a weapon, something better than this plasma cutter. Inside the command center, Aurora directed him to a small compartment near the pilot's seat. This contained standard exploration equipment, including defensive tools. Rafe opened the compartment to find what looked like a sleek, handheld device about the size of his forearm. What is this? A particle disruption projector. It emits a focused beam that temporarily destabilizes the molecular bonds of its target, non-lethal but highly effective at incapacitating threats. Rafe examined the weapon, finding it surprisingly lightweight and intuitive to hold. Range? Approximately 50 meters with high accuracy. Power cell is at 92% capacity. Nodding, Rafe moved to the viewport, watching as a plume of dust became visible in the distance. The approaching vehicle, now less than a mile away and moving fast. Can you magnify that? He asked. The viewport shimmered, the image zooming in to show a rugged, all-terrain vehicle bouncing over the rough canyon floor. It was heavily modified, with makeshift armor plating and what appeared to be salvaged weapon mounts. A single figure was visible in the driver's seat. Definitely a scavenger, Rafe muttered. Probably picked up our energy signature during the fold jump and came to investigate. They're going to find a lot more than they bargained for. The electromagnetic disruption field is active, Aurora informed him. However, it will not prevent visual identification if they come within line of sight. Rafe considered their options. They could try to remain hidden and hope the scavenger moved on, but if they were discovered, the element of surprise would be lost. Better to take control of the situation. I'm going out to intercept, he decided. Keep the ship sealed and maintain minimum power signatures. If things go badly, focus all resources on getting the propulsion system online so you can escape. Your probability of successfully deterring the intruder alone is approximately 67%. Aurora calculated. I could provide tactical support through your communications device. Good idea. Rafe touched the small comm unit in his ear, ensuring it was securely in place. Keep the channel open, and Aurora, if I don't make it back, initiate the self-repair and get this ship to safety. Find another walker if you have to. Understood, but I calculate a 91% probability of your successful return if you follow optimal tactical approaches. Let's hope your math is good, Rafe said with a grim smile, checking the particle weapon one more time before heading for the exit. Outside, the canyon was now bathed in deep blue twilight, the temperature dropping rapidly as night set in. Rafe moved quickly but cautiously, using the rock formations for cover as he made his way toward the approaching vehicle. He could hear its engine now, the sound echoing off the canyon walls. Target vehicle is adjusting course. Aurora's voice came through his comm unit. It appears to be following a specific energy reading. Can you determine what kind of scanning equipment they are using? Based on the signal patterns, it appears to be a modified Resource Corporation mineral detector, not designed for vessel detection, but sensitive enough to pick up our power fluctuations. That was both good and bad news. Good, because it meant the scavenger probably wasn't specifically hunting for them, but bad because RC mineral detectors were notoriously accurate. The electromagnetic disruption might not be enough to hide them completely. Rafe reached a vantage point atop a rocky outcropping that gave him a clear view of the approaching vehicle. It had slowed considerably and was now moving in a search pattern, the driver occasionally consulting what was likely a scanner display. Visual confirmation on the operator. Aurora reported through the comm. Single human male, approximately 30-35 years of age, armed with what appears to be a modified Alliance pulse rifle. Defensive capabilities include light armor plating on the vehicle, but no personal protection visible. Rafe raised the particle disruptor, taking aim as the vehicle came within range. He could disable the engine with a single shot, but that would potentially strand the scavenger in the canyon, creating a new problem. Better to try communication first. Hold position, he called out, his voice carrying clearly in the still evening air. This area is claimed. Turn back now. The vehicle screeched to a halt, dust billowing around it. The driver remained seated but raised his hand slightly to show he wasn't reaching for a weapon. Didn't see any claim markers, the man called back. My scanner's showing a major deposit in this direction, rich in neodymium, from the readings. Your scanner's wrong, Rafe replied, keeping the disruptor trained on the vehicle. Nothing here but rock and dust. Last warning. Turn around and find somewhere else to dig. The scavenger seemed to consider this for a moment, then slowly reached down to his console. Look, I'm just after minerals. If you've got a prior claim, maybe we can work something out? Split the take? The individual is activating a different scanning frequency, Aurora warned in Rafe's ear. More comprehensive range. He will detect the ship in approximately 20 seconds. Rafe made a split-second decision. Power up the ship's external lights. All of them. That will reveal our position, Aurora cautioned. Exactly. A moment later, the Aurora lit up like a small sun. Brilliant white light flooding the canyon and illuminating the massive vessel in all its alien glory. The scavenger's reaction was immediate. He nearly fell out of his seat in shock, fumbling for his weapon. I wouldn't, Rafe called, stepping into view with the disruptor clearly visible. That's not a mining claim you've stumbled on. That's something a lot more valuable and a lot more dangerous. The scavenger stared open-mouthed at the ship, then back at Rafe. What the hell is that thing? Something the Alliance would kill to get their hands on. Same for the corporation. which means if word gets out that you saw it, they'll be coming for you next. Understand?" The man nodded slowly, his hand moving away from his weapon. "I get it. Secret project. None of my business. Smart. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn around and leave the way you came. You're going to wipe your scanner's memory banks. And you're never going to mention what you saw here to anyone. In exchange, I don't disable your vehicle and leave you to walk out of this canyon." The scavenger hesitated, clearly calculating his options. "That's a big ask. Friend, information like this is worth something." "It's worth your life," Rafe said flatly. "Because if the Alliance or Corporation trace this back to you, they won't just ask questions." "He is attempting to activate a recording device," Aurora informed Rafe through the comm. "Small camera built into his scanner." Rafe fired the disruptor without further warning, the beam striking the scanner in the scavenger's hands. The device sparked and went dark, causing the man to yelp and drop it. "Next one hits your engine block," Rafe warned. "Make your choice." The scavenger raised his hands again, higher this time. All right, no need for that. I'm going." "Smart decision." "And just so we're clear," Rafe gestured toward the ship, where Aurora's holographic form had appeared in the entrance, glowing eerily in the twilight. "We'll know if you try to double back, or if you contact anyone about this. The ship has capabilities you can't imagine." The scavenger stared at Aurora's holographic form with renewed fear. "Is that an AI? A real one?" "Among other things," Rafe confirmed. "Now go." The man didn't need to be told twice. He gunned the engine of his vehicle, executing a hasty three-point turn before speeding back the way he had come, dust billowing in his wake. Rafe kept the disruptor trained on the retreating vehicle until it disappeared around a bend in the canyon. Only then did he lower the weapon, letting out a long breath. "Will he stay quiet?" Aurora asked through the comm. "Not a chance," Rafe replied, making his way back toward the ship. "He'll head straight for the nearest settlement with communications capability. We need to be gone before he can bring others back. The repair cycle cannot be significantly accelerated without compromising system integrity," Aurora reminded him. "We require at least 72 more hours before the propulsion system will be operational at minimum capacity." Rafe cursed under his breath as he climbed back aboard the ship. In the command center, he brought up a topographical display of the surrounding area. "Then we need to find somewhere even more remote, somewhere nobody would think to look. I have been analyzing potential locations during your interaction with the scavenger," Aurora said, her holographic form materializing beside him. "There is an abandoned pre-war facility approximately 200 miles northeast of our current position. According to historical records, it was a military bunker known as Cheyenne Mountain Complex." "I know it." Rafe nodded. "Deep underground facility, heavily shielded. The Alliance and Corporation both tried to claim it after the wars, but the radiation levels were too high for sustained occupation. They stripped what they could and abandoned it. The radiation would provide excellent cover for our energy signatures," Aurora noted. "And my systems include sufficient shielding to protect you from exposure during a limited stay." "But we still can't fly there," Rafe pointed out. "Not conventionally. No, however, there is an alternative. The dimensional fold drive could be partially activated for a much shorter jump, under 1 mile. By executing a series of small jumps, we could relocate to the Cheyenne facility over the course of approximately 10 hours. What's the catch? There's always a catch." Aurora's holographic form flickered slightly, the AI equivalent of hesitation. "Each micro-jump would strain the fold drive components and draw power from the repair systems. The cumulative effect would extend our total repair time from 72 hours to approximately 96 hours. 4 days instead of 3, Rafe translated. "But we'd be somewhere far more secure." He considered the options. "That scavenger will have spread the word within 12 hours at most. Alliance or Corporation forces could be here by tomorrow night. I don't think we have a choice." I concur. Shall I begin preparations for the first micro-jump? Rafe nodded. Do it, and this time, let's skip the suspended animation. I'd rather stay conscious, even if it's a rougher ride. Without suspended animation, you will experience significant discomfort during each fold transition, Aurora warned. The human body is not designed to perceive dimensional shifting while conscious. I've had worse, Rafe said grimly. Besides, I need to stay alert in case we run into more trouble. How long until we're ready for the first jump? Diverting power to fold drive initialization. First jump capability in approximately 22 minutes. While they waited, Rafe accessed the ship's logs again, searching for more information about the Centaurians and their technology. If they were going to be stuck in hiding for 4 days, he wanted to understand exactly what they were protecting, and what might happen if it fell into the wrong hands. The logs revealed that the Centaurians weren't just a single species, but rather a collective of 3 distinct intelligent life forms that had evolved on different planets in the Proxima Centauri system. They had achieved interstellar unity thousands of years before making contact with Earth, developing technologies that operated on principles far beyond human understanding. The dimensional fold drive was just one of many advancements they had developed, a relatively simple one by their standards, which was why they had been willing to share it as a first step. But even this simple technology had world-changing implications, allowing for instant transportation across vast distances by temporarily folding space-time. In the right hands, it could revolutionize transportation, eliminate resource scarcity, and open up new frontiers for exploration. In the wrong hands, it could create undetectable weapons platforms, enable instantaneous deployment of military forces, and render traditional defenses obsolete. First micro-jump ready, Aurora announced, interrupting Rafe's research. Coordinates set for a position 0.8 miles northeast, behind the ridge formation designated Alpha 3. Let's do it, Rafe said, securing himself in the command chair. Initiating fold in 3, 2, 1. The world seemed to twist around Rafe, colors inverting and reality bending in impossible ways. For a split second, he felt as if his body was being pulled in every direction simultaneously, his consciousness stretching like taffy. Then, with a sickening lurch, everything snapped back into place. Rafe doubled over, gasping and fighting the urge to vomit. That was, he managed between ragged breaths, worse than I expected. Your vital signs show extreme stress but remain within acceptable parameters, Aurora reported. The sensation should diminish with subsequent jumps as your neural pathways adapt to the experience. Fantastic, Rafe muttered, straightening slowly. How many more of these do we need to do? Approximately 250 jumps to reach the Cheyenne facility, with a 20-minute recharge period between each jump. Rafe groaned. It was going to be a very long night. By the time they completed their final jump, Rafe felt as if his very atoms had been scrambled and reassembled a dozen times over. His head pounded, his vision occasionally blurred, and every muscle ached with a deep, bone-penetrating fatigue. But they had made it. The ship now rested deep within the abandoned Cheyenne Mountain complex, in what had once been a massive underground hangar designed for pre-war aircraft. The facility's thick rock walls and the residual radiation from damaged reactor cores created the perfect hiding place, shielding their energy signatures from detection. Beginning full repair cycle, Aurora announced as the system stabilized after the final jump. Estimated completion time, 94 hours, 17 minutes. Rafe nodded wearily, too exhausted to speak. He dragged himself from the command chair to a small alcove that Aurora had configured as living quarters, complete with a sleeping platform and basic amenities. Without bothering to remove his boots, he collapsed onto the platform and was asleep within seconds. He dreamed of stars, countless stars spread across an infinite void, and among them, worlds teeming with life forms he could barely comprehend. In the dream, he stood on the bridge of the Aurora, watching as alien landscapes passed by in a blur of color and light. Beside him stood a figure that resembled his ancestor, Dr. Elias Walker, but with features that shifted and changed, sometimes looking like Rafe's own reflection. "They're waiting for you," the figure said, gesturing toward a particular star that glowed brighter than the others. "They've been waiting for a very long time." Rafe woke with a start, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. The dream lingered, leaving him with a strange sense of urgency and purpose. "You were in deep REM sleep for approximately 7 hours. Aurora's voice came from nearby. "Your vital signs have stabilized, and the neural stress from the multiple fold jumps has decreased by 62%. Rafe sat up slowly, his body still aching but his mind clearer. "Any sign of pursuit? Did we make it here clean?" "No detection signatures have registered on our sensors. The radiation levels in this facility are effectively masking our presence based on available data. I calculate a 97% probability that we were not tracked to this location." That was good news. At least. Rafe stood and stretched, wincing at the stiffness in his joints. "What's the status on the repairs?" "Progress is at 31%. All critical systems are functioning at minimum capacity. The dimensional fold drive is undergoing recalibration following the strain of multiple micro-jumps." Rafe made his way to the command center, where the displays showed various diagnostic readouts and repair progress. Outside the viewports, he could see the cavernous underground hangar, its walls lined with abandoned equipment and vehicles from before the wars. Emergency lighting strips along the floor cast everything in a pale blue glow. "Can you access the facility's systems?" he asked. "See if any of it is still operational." "I have established limited connection with the remaining functional infrastructure," Aurora replied. "Power generation is at 3% of original capacity, drawing from emergency backup systems that were designed to operate for centuries. Basic life support is functioning in this section, though other areas of the complex are exposed to vacuum or radiation." "Any communications capability?" "Negative. All external communication systems were disabled or removed during the Alliance Corporation salvage operations. Internal comms are functional but limited to this facility." Rafe nodded, thinking through their next steps. "So we're effectively cut off for the next 4 days. No way to know what's happening outside." "Correct. However, this isolation also means that hostile forces cannot easily locate us. The trade-off appears favorable given our circumstances." "Agreed." Rafe accessed the ship's food synthesizer, creating a basic meal to address his growing hunger. As he ate, he continued to review the ship's logs, focusing now on the events that had led to its departure from Earth. According to Dr. Walker's final entries, the situation had deteriorated rapidly once knowledge of the Centaurian technology began to spread. Nations that had previously been allies turned on each other, each desperate to secure an advantage in what they perceived as a new arms race. The resource corporations, which had already been gaining power and autonomy in the pre-war era, seized the opportunity to establish themselves as independent entities, using their control over essential materials to bargain for access to the new technology. Dr. Walker and his team had tried to act as mediators, attempting to establish protocols for the safe and equitable distribution of Centaurian knowledge. But they quickly found themselves targeted by all sides, viewed alternately as obstacles to be removed or assets to be controlled. The decision to remove the Aurora and its technology from Earth had been a last resort, a desperate attempt to prevent the complete weaponization of dimensional fold capabilities. Dr. Walker had hoped that by the time the ship returned, humanity would have either worked through its conflicts or, at the very least, developed the ethical frameworks necessary to handle such powerful technology responsibly. Instead, the ship had returned to a world still divided, still ruled by the same factions that had triggered the technology wars in the first place. "Aurora," Rafe said after finishing his meal. "What was the contingency plan if Dr. Walker found that humanity wasn't ready when the ship returned?" The AI's holographic form appeared across from him, taking a seat as if joining him for the meal. There were several contingency protocols, depending on the specific circumstances encountered. The primary fallback was to return the ship to Centaurian space, keeping the technology out of human hands until a more favorable social evolution had occurred. And how long would that take? Another century? 2? The Centaurians operate on longer timescales than humans. Their assessment suggested that human society might require between 300 and 500 years to develop the necessary ethical consensus for safe integration of advanced technology. Rafe laughed bitterly. So we're basically children to them. Too immature to be trusted with the good stuff. Not children, Aurora corrected. Simply a younger civilization following a different evolutionary path. The Centaurians themselves went through similar phases of conflict and division before achieving their current state of cooperation. And what about now? We've had a century of struggling to rebuild after the wars. Have we evolved enough for them? Aurora was silent for a moment, processing. That assessment cannot be made without direct Centaurian input. However, based on my analysis of current human society, there have been both positive and negative developments. The formation of independent zones like Providence Station indicates a capacity for cooperation outside traditional power structures. Conversely, the continued militarization of both the Alliance and Corporation suggests persistent tendencies toward conflict. Rafe considered this. So we're still not ready, not by their standards. Perhaps not as a whole, Aurora acknowledged. But individual humans, like yourself, may demonstrate the necessary ethical framework to serve as intermediaries, bridges between your species and others. Me? Rafe shook his head in disbelief. I'm a scavenger, a tech hunter. I've spent my life just trying to survive, not contemplating the ethical implications of advanced technology. Yet, when presented with access to this ship, potentially the most valuable salvage on the planet, your first instinct was caution, not exploitation. You sought to understand before acting. These are precisely the qualities the Centaurians value. Rafe wasn't convinced, but before he could argue further, an alert sounded from one of the command center displays. External sensor detection, Aurora announced, her tone shifting to one of concern. Multiple aerial vehicles approaching the mountain range. Configuration matches Military Alliance scout craft. Could be coincidence, Rafe suggested, though he didn't believe it himself. This was an Alliance facility originally. Maybe they're just doing routine patrols. Flight pattern indicates a search grid, not a patrol route. They appear to be scanning for energy signatures. Can they detect us through the radiation and rock? Not directly. However, the micro jumps we performed have left trace energy signatures in the atmosphere. If they are specifically looking for dimensional fold radiation, they may be able to track our general path. Rafe cursed. So much for our perfect hiding spot. Options? The facility's deep sections provide additional shielding. We could relocate the ship to a lower level, which would further reduce the chance of detection. Do it, and power down everything that's not essential for the repairs. As Aurora guided the ship deeper into the abandoned complex, using its limited hovering capabilities to navigate through massive blast doors and down enormous elevator shafts, Rafe pondered their increasingly precarious situation. The Alliance's quick response suggested they had specific knowledge about what they were looking for, knowledge they shouldn't have had unless they'd been tracking dimensional fold technology all along. That raised disturbing questions about what else they might know. Aurora, he said as they settled into a new position nearly 1,000 feet below their previous location. Is it possible that the Alliance has been in contact with Centaurians? Or maybe found other technology like yours? The AI was silent for a long moment, processing this troubling hypothesis. The possibility cannot be discounted. Certain advancements in Alliance technology over the past decade have followed trajectories consistent with Centaurian influence, though they could also be explained by independent discovery. Could there be, I don't know, factions among the Centaurians? Groups that don't agree with the whole wait until humans are ready approach? Yes, Aurora confirmed. surprising Rafe with the directness of her answer. The Centaurian collective, while largely unified, does contain dissident elements. During our time in their space, there were debates about the handling of Earth contact. Some advocated for more direct intervention, arguing that guided technological advancement would accelerate human ethical development. And let me guess, these dissidents might not have had a problem sharing technology with groups like the Alliance, even if the majority of Centaurians disapproved. It is a concerning but plausible scenario. Such dissidents were colloquially referred to as the impatient ones among Dr. Walker's team. Rafe ran a hand through his hair, processing the implications. So we might not just be dealing with the Alliance Incorporation. There could be Centaurian factions involved too, working through human proxies. If that is the case, the situation is more complex than initially assessed. The Alliance's apparent ability to track dimensional fold signatures suggests access to technology beyond what should be available to them. A new alert sounded, more urgent than the previous one. Displays showed multiple craft landing on the mountain's surface, directly above their position. "They're here," Rafe said grimly. "How long before they can reach this level?" "The facility's security systems are severely degraded, but some remain functional. I am activating what defenses I can access to slow their progress. However, I estimate they will reach our position within 3-4 hours if they are determined." "And the repairs?" "Current progress, 37%. Minimum operational capability for sustained flight will not be achieved for another 59 hours. Rafe paced the command center, weighing their limited options. "What about another series of micro-jumps? Get us out of here before they reach us." "The fold drive is still recalibrating from the previous jumps. Attempting another sequence now would risk catastrophic system failure." "So we're trapped." Rafe stopped pacing, a new determination settling over him. "Then we fight. What weapons does this ship have?" The Aurora was designed primarily as an exploration and diplomatic vessel. The AI reminded him. "Offensive capabilities are limited to point defense systems intended for meteoroid deflection. They would be minimally effective against military craft." "But you said the facility has some functional defenses." "What kind?" "Automated security drones, hardened against EMP and radiation. Originally, 24 units were stationed on this level, of which 7 remain operational. They are equipped with non-lethal crowd control measures and basic defensive capabilities." "Non-lethal won't help us much against Alliance Special Forces," Rafe muttered. "Can they be reprogrammed, upgraded?" Aurora's holographic form flickered slightly as she processed the request. "Theoretically, yes. The drones use a modular combat system that could be enhanced with Centaurian technology. However, doing so would divert resources from the ship's repairs, extending our timeline further." Rafe made a quick decision. "Do it. Upgrade 3 of the drones with whatever will give them the best chance against Alliance forces. Focus the rest of the resources on the repairs." "Acknowledged. Initiating drone enhancement protocol." As Aurora worked, Rafe continued to monitor the Alliance's progress through the facility's remaining security cameras. They moved with military precision, a squad of 12 heavily armed Special Forces operatives methodically clearing each section before moving deeper. Their equipment was cutting-edge Alliance technology, including what appeared to be radiation shielding and advanced sensor arrays. But something about their movements bothered Rafe. They seemed to know exactly where they were going, bypassing numerous side passages and potential hiding spots without even checking them. It was as if they had a map, or were being guided. "Aurora, is it possible they're tracking something specific about the ship? Something besides just general energy signatures?" Analyzing sensor data, there is an unusual pattern in their search parameters. They appear to be following trace quantum resonances, a specific type of energy emission unique to Centaurian technology. "Can we mask it?" "Not entirely, but I could create a dispersion field that would generate false readings. It would essentially create echoes of our position throughout the facility, making it difficult for them to pinpoint our exact location." Do it, Rafe ordered. And how are those drone upgrades coming? Enhancement at 64% completion. The primary challenge is integrating Centaurian phase shift technology with the drone's existing weapon systems. Once complete, the drones will be capable of penetrating standard Alliance armor while minimizing structural damage to the facility. Rafe nodded, already formulating a plan. Here's what we're going to do. Once the drones are ready, we'll use them to engage the Alliance forces directly, not to defeat them, but to slow them down and create confusion. Meanwhile, I'll work my way around to their entry point and disable their vehicles. Without transportation, they'll be stranded here long enough for us to complete repairs and escape. The plan has merit, Aurora agreed, but involves significant personal risk. The likelihood of you successfully navigating to their position without detection is approximately 42%. Better odds than I usually get, Rafe said with a grim smile. Besides, I know these old facilities better than they do. There are maintenance tunnels and emergency routes that won't show up on standard schematics. Very well. Drone enhancements will be complete in 17 minutes. I have also prepared the dispersion field and can activate it on your command. Rafe spent the next quarter hour gathering equipment for his mission: the particle disruptor, emergency rations, a portable comm unit linked to Aurora's systems, and a small medkit. He also studied the facility's layout, identifying the most likely route the Alliance forces would take and planning his own path to intercept them. Drone enhancements complete, Aurora announced. They are now under my control and ready for deployment. And the dispersion field? Ready to activate. However, I should warn you that the field will also affect our communications. Once you leave the immediate vicinity of the ship, our contact will be limited and intermittent. Rafe nodded, accepting the risk. Activate the field and deploy the drones to strategic positions along their most likely approach. I want them ambushed at multiple points, forced to split their attention. Acknowledged. Dispersion field activating now. A subtle vibration ran through the air as the field came online, creating quantum echoes of the ship's energy signature throughout the vast underground complex. On the security monitors, Rafe could see the Alliance team suddenly pause, their leader consulting a handheld device with evident confusion. It's working, Rafe observed. They're picking up readings from all directions now. Yes, their advance has slowed considerably as they attempt to verify the authentic signal. This should buy us additional time. Rafe checked his equipment one final time. I'm heading out. Keep the ship sealed and continue repairs at maximum priority. If I'm not back in 4 hours, assume the worst and focus on getting operational enough to escape. The probability of mission success would increase by 27% if you were to wait until the Alliance forces are engaged with the drones before attempting to flank their position, Aurora suggested. Good point. Let me know when they make contact. Rafe moved to the ship's entrance, which opened with a soft hiss. The cavernous underground hangar beyond was dimly lit by emergency lighting, casting long shadows across abandoned equipment and vehicles. The air was stale but breathable, with a faint metallic tang that suggested the presence of the radiation that permeated the upper levels. 15 minutes later, Aurora's voice came through his comm unit. Alliance forces have encountered the first drone. Engagement in progress on Level 3, Section D. Through the comm, Rafe could hear the distant sound of weapons fire, followed by shouted commands as the Alliance team responded to the unexpected resistance. What's their status? The drone is performing as designed. Alliance forces unable to penetrate its defenses with standard weapons. They are falling back to a defensive position while attempting to analyze its capabilities. Perfect. Keep the pressure on them. I'm moving out. Rafe slipped away from the ship, navigating through the labyrinthine complex using the route he had memorized. The maintenance tunnels were narrow and occasionally blocked by collapsed sections, forcing him to find alternate paths. The dispersion field made his comm link with Aurora unreliable, cutting out for minutes at a time before briefly reconnecting. After nearly an hour of careful movement, he had worked his way up 3 levels, avoiding the main routes where the Alliance forces were engaged with Aurora's drones. According to the last update he'd received, the team had split into 3 groups to deal with the multiple threats, exactly as they'd hoped. Rafe emerged from a ventilation shaft into a large storage area, its shelves long since stripped of anything valuable. From here, it was only 2 more sections to the surface access point where the Alliance had entered, and where their vehicles would be waiting. He crept forward cautiously, using the rows of empty shelving for cover. The sound of weapon fire was closer now, coming from a connecting corridor. One of the drones must have driven an Alliance group in this direction. "Aurora, status update," he whispered into his comm, but received only static in response. The dispersion field was blocking communication at this distance. He would have to proceed without guidance. As Rafe neared the exit of the storage area, he heard voices approaching. 2, maybe 3 people, speaking in the clipped tones of Alliance operatives. They're making no sense. These readings are impossible. Command was clear. If it uses dimensional technology, we secure it, no matter what. But these drones aren't like anything in the briefing. They're using phase shift weapons. That's Centaurian tech. Exactly why we need to find the source. The orders came directly from Liaison Maxwell. Rafe froze at the name Maxwell, the same name as the scientist who had leaked the Centaurian technology a century ago, triggering the technology wars. It couldn't be a coincidence. The voices were growing closer. Rafe ducked behind a fallen shelf, holding his breath as 3 Alliance soldiers entered the storage area, their weapons raised and scanning for threats. "This place is a maze," one complained. "The radiation is playing hell with our trackers." Liaison Maxwell said the signature would be unmistakable, a ship unlike anything we've seen before. "Maxwell says a lot of things," the 3rd soldier muttered. "Been chasing ghosts for years on his intel." They moved past Rafe's position, heading deeper into the complex, away from the surface access point. Once they were out of sight, he continued on his original path, moving with renewed urgency. The mention of Liaison Maxwell suggested his earlier suspicion had been correct. The Alliance was indeed working with someone who had knowledge of Centaurian technology, possibly a descendant of the original Dr. Maxwell who had caused the wars. Rafe reached the access tunnel that led to the surface without further incident. The massive blast doors that had once sealed the entrance had been forced open, creating a gap just wide enough for personnel to pass through. Beyond, he could see natural light filtering down from above, the first sunlight he'd glimpsed in over a day. The tunnel sloped upward at a steep angle, with a series of metal rungs embedded in the wall serving as a ladder. Alliance equipment was scattered along the route: portable lighting units, communication relays, and sensors designed to monitor the radiation levels. Rafe climbed carefully, pausing at each relay to disable it. By the time the Alliance realized their communication network was compromised, it would be too late. Near the top of the shaft, he could hear the hum of engines, the Alliance transport vehicles, left running to power their equipment. Rafe peered cautiously out of the opening, surveying the situation. 3 sleek hovercrafts were positioned in a triangular formation around the tunnel entrance, each equipped with heavy weapons and advanced sensor arrays. 2 guards patrolled the perimeter, while a 3rd monitored a portable command console near the largest vehicle. Disabling all 3 craft would be challenging, but not impossible. The particle disruptor Aurora had given him could temporarily disable their power systems if aimed correctly. The challenge would be doing so without alerting the guards. Rafe waited patiently for the patrol pattern to create an opening. When one of the guards moved to the far side of the perimeter and the other stopped to adjust his equipment, Rafe seized the opportunity. He emerged silently from the tunnel, staying low and using the vehicles themselves for cover. Reaching the first hovercraft, he located the main power coupling beneath the rear thruster assembly. One quick burst from the disruptor, and the craft's systems went dark, its hovering capability failing gently as it settled onto the ground. The shutdown was quiet enough that the guards didn't notice. Their attention focused outward for external threats. Moving to the second craft, Rafe repeated the process. 2 down, 1 to go, but as he approached the final vehicle, his luck ran out. "Intruder!" shouted the guard at the command console, reaching for his weapon. "Perimeter breach!" Rafe abandoned stealth and fired the disruptor directly at the console, causing it to spark and explode in a shower of components. The guard was thrown backward by the blast, momentarily stunned. With no time for precision, Rafe fired at the third hovercraft's engine housing, causing a more violent reaction than the previous 2. The craft's propulsion system overloaded, venting plasma in a brilliant blue flash that illuminated the entire area. The other guards were now running toward him. Weapons raised, Rafe dove behind the disabled craft for cover as energy bolts sizzled through the air where he had been standing. "Aurora, if you can hear me, I could use some help up here," he shouted into his comm, not expecting a response through the dispersion field. To his surprise, the comm crackled to life. "Reinforcements incoming. Maintain your position for 47 seconds. Rafe didn't know what Aurora had planned, but he trusted the AI's calculations. He returned fire with the disruptor, forcing the guards to take cover and buying precious seconds. Exactly 45 seconds later, the ground trembled as something massive rose from the tunnel entrance behind him. One of the enhanced drones, significantly larger than Rafe had expected, emerged onto the surface. Its metallic frame gleamed with an otherworldly iridescence, a side effect of the Centaurian technology Aurora had integrated into its systems. The Alliance guards opened fire immediately, but their weapons had no effect. Energy bolts simply disappeared into the drone's phase-shifted exterior. The drone responded with a concentrated pulse that disabled their weapons, followed by a secondary pulse that rendered both guards unconscious. "Transport vehicles neutralized," Rafe reported into his comm. "Guards incapacitated. We should have at least a few hours before they're missed." "Acknowledged," Aurora replied, the signal clearer now that the drone was acting as a relay. "However, we have a new complication. The Alliance team inside the facility has located another entrance and called for reinforcements. Additional forces will arrive in approximately 2.7 hours. "So much for buying time," Rafe muttered. "New plan? Return to the ship immediately. I have diverted additional power to the propulsion system. We cannot achieve orbit, but we can relocate to a more secure position before the reinforcements arrive." Rafe didn't need to be told twice. He sprinted back to the tunnel entrance, the drone following to provide cover. As they descended back into the facility, he could hear the sounds of conflict echoing through the vast chambers, the remaining drones still engaging the Alliance forces, keeping them distracted. The journey back to the ship seemed to take forever, each corridor and maintenance tunnel blending into the next in the dim emergency lighting. When Rafe finally emerged into the hangar where the Aurora waited, he was exhausted but relieved. The ship hummed with energy, its systems obviously operating at higher capacity than when he'd left. The hull glowed faintly with a blue-white light that pulsed in a slow, steady rhythm. "Welcome back," Aurora greeted him as he boarded. "Self-repair progress is at 51%, and I have managed to restore primary propulsion to 67% functionality. It will be sufficient for low-altitude flight, though atmospheric exit remains impossible at this time." "Where can we go?" Rafe asked, collapsing into the command chair. "The Alliance will have all their resources looking for us now. I have identified a location that offers both strategic and symbolic value," Aurora replied, displaying a map on one of the screens. "The Black Mesa Research Facility, approximately 400 miles west of our current position. It was a pre-war scientific installation, now abandoned due to catastrophic reactor failure during the technology wars. The radiation levels there are off the charts," Rafe pointed out. "Even worse than here." "Precisely. The extreme radiation will mask our energy signature completely, making detection virtually impossible. Additionally, the facility contains equipment that may be salvageable to accelerate our repairs. And the symbolic value? Aurora's holographic form appeared beside him, her expression solemn. Black Mesa was where Dr. Elias Walker first began his research into advanced propulsion systems, the work that eventually led to our contact with the Centaurians. It seems fitting that we seek shelter there now. Rafe nodded slowly. A return to the beginning. I like it. How soon can we leave? Propulsion systems will be ready in 12 minutes. I have recalled the remaining functional drones to provide escort during our departure. As the ship prepared for launch, Rafe reviewed the facility schematics for Black Mesa, familiarizing himself with its layout. Like Cheyenne Mountain, it was primarily underground, but with a very different purpose, research rather than military operations. Its laboratories had once housed some of the most brilliant scientific minds on the planet, working on technologies that had been revolutionary even before the Centaurian contact. Propulsion systems online, Aurora announced, preparing for departure. The ship rose smoothly from the hangar floor, its hovering capabilities fully restored. The remaining drones took up positions around it, their enhanced systems glowing with the same ethereal blue light as the Aurora's hull. The Alliance forces have detected our movement, Aurora reported. They are converging on our position. Can we outrun them? Yes, but they will pursue. The drones will run interference to delay them while we exit the facility. The ship accelerated forward, navigating through the massive underground chambers toward an enormous vehicle access tunnel that sloped upward to the surface. Behind them, Rafe could see Alliance soldiers appearing at various entrances, firing ineffectually at the retreating vessel. The drones performed their role perfectly, creating barriers of disrupted space that confused sensors and blocked weapons fire. By the time the Aurora reached the surface, emerging into the bright afternoon sunlight, they had established a significant lead on their pursuers. Alliance aerial vehicles detected, Aurora warned as they soared away from the mountain. Intercept course plotted. They will reach our position in approximately 3 minutes. Can we outrun them? Negative. Their top speed exceeds our current capabilities. However, I have an alternative strategy. The ship banked sharply, heading directly toward a massive storm system visible on the horizon. Dark clouds towered miles into the sky, lightning flashing continuously within their depths. The storm will provide cover and disrupt their tracking systems. Aurora explained. Our hull is designed to withstand far more extreme conditions than theirs. Rafe gripped the command chair as they accelerated toward the wall of clouds. I hope you know what you're doing. Trust in Centaurian engineering, Aurora replied, with what almost sounded like humor in her synthetic voice. The moment they entered the storm, Rafe understood why Aurora had chosen this route. The ship's advanced systems cut through the turbulence with remarkable stability, while outside, the wind and rain created a natural barrier that would severely hamper Alliance pursuit. Lightning struck the hull multiple times, but the energy was simply absorbed and redirected, causing the ship's lights to briefly intensify. Alliance pursuers have reduced speed by 70%, Aurora reported. They are attempting to maintain visual contact, but failing. Estimated probability of successful pursuit is now 18% and falling. For the next hour, they navigated through the massive storm system, changing direction frequently to further confuse any tracking attempts. When they finally emerged on the far side, the skies behind them were clear of pursuit. We have successfully evaded immediate threat, Aurora confirmed. Setting course for Black Mesa, estimated arrival time, 47 minutes. Rafe relaxed slightly for the first time in what felt like days. That was too close. If they tracked us to Cheyenne, they can track us again. The situation has provided valuable data, Aurora noted. The Alliance's tracking capabilities are more advanced than anticipated, confirming our suspicion of external assistance. This liaison, Maxwell, you think he's connected to the original Dr. Maxwell? The one who leaked the technology? The statistical probability is high, The Maxwell bloodline was extensively documented in our records due to Dr. Leonard Maxwell's role in the research team. If the Alliance has a scientific advisor with that name and knowledge of Centaurian technology, genetic relation is the most logical explanation. Great, Rafe muttered. So we're not just dealing with the Alliance, but with someone who has a personal connection to all this. Someone who might know almost as much about the ship as you do. A concerning development, Aurora agreed. It suggests the Alliance's interest is not merely opportunistic, but based on specific knowledge of the Aurora's capabilities. As they continued toward the Black Mesa, Rafe considered their increasingly limited options. The Alliance was clearly determined to capture the ship, and now they knew it was functional and mobile. The Resource Corporation would undoubtedly intensify their own search efforts once word spread. And if Aurora's suspicions about Centaurian factions were correct, there might be even more powerful forces at work behind the scenes. Aurora, he said after a long silence, the Centaurians, when they gave this technology to my ancestor, did they have any way to track it, to know if it was being misused? The AI was silent for a moment, as if considering how to respond. Yes, she finally admitted. The dimensional fold drive contains what might be described as a quantum signature that would be recognizable to Centaurian monitoring systems. It was a safety measure, allowing them to intervene if the technology was weaponized. And did they? Intervene, when the wars started? No direct intervention was recorded. However, there were anomalies in certain historical events that might suggest subtle influence. Critical weapon systems failing at key moments. Communication breakdowns that prevented escalation. These could have been coincidence, or they could have been the result of limited Centaurian interference. Rafe processed this new information. So they were watching. Maybe still are. It is a logical assumption. The return of this vessel to Earth would almost certainly have registered on their monitoring systems. Then why haven't they made contact? Come to collect their technology before it falls into the wrong hands again. Aurora's holographic form appeared in the co-pilot's seat, her expression thoughtful. The Centaurians operate on different timescales and with different priorities than humans. They may be observing, gathering data before deciding on a course of action. Or they may be waiting to see how humanity handles this second chance, whether we have learned from our past mistakes. Or, Rafe suggested, they might be divided on how to respond. If there are factions among them, like you said, some might want to help us while others push for intervention. Political deadlock isn't just a human problem. I'm guessing a perceptive observation, Aurora acknowledged. During our time in Centaurian space, there were indeed significant political divisions regarding Earth policy. Some advocated for direct guidance, others for complete isolation, and many positions between these extremes. The conversation was interrupted as the ship crested a ridge, revealing their destination spread out below. Black Mesa was a sprawling complex built into a natural formation of dark rock, its surface structures now little more than ruins. Signs of the catastrophic reactor failure that had rendered it uninhabitable were evident in the scorched earth surrounding the main facility and the eerie blue glow that emanated from certain areas. Cherenkov radiation from exposed reactor components. Radiation levels are within acceptable parameters for the ship's shielding, Aurora reported. However, any excursion outside would require significant protection. Not planning on sightseeing, Rafe assured her. Can you locate a secure area for us to land, preferably underground, away from any weak points in the facility's structure? Aurora scanned the complex, analyzing the deteriorating buildings and access points. There is a sub-level hangar facility in the southwestern quadrant. It appears structurally sound and has minimal radiation exposure due to specialized shielding that remains partially intact. Take us in, and keep the sensors at maximum sensitivity. I don't want any more surprises. The ship descended smoothly toward the ruined complex, navigating carefully around unstable structures. As they approached the designated hangar, Massive doors that had once sealed the underground facility groaned open, responding to Aurora's remote commands through systems that had lain dormant for decades. Inside, the hangar was vast and eerily preserved, as if time had stopped the moment the facility was evacuated. Various research vehicles sat abandoned in neat rows, covered in a thick layer of dust but otherwise intact. Along the walls, sophisticated equipment, much of it still powered by the facility's auxiliary systems, hummed quietly, maintaining the environmental conditions despite the passage of years. "This is perfect," Rafe said as the ship settled onto the hangar floor. "Those old research vehicles might have parts we can salvage to speed up repairs." "Agreed. I am detecting several components that are compatible with our systems, particularly in the power regulation and propulsion categories. With appropriate modifications, we could potentially reduce our repair time by 22–27%. Let's get to work. Then, the sooner we're fully operational, the more options we'll have." Over the next several hours, Rafe and Aurora worked in concert to salvage useful technology from the abandoned research vehicles, using the ship's maintenance drones, smaller, less advanced versions of the security drones they'd left behind at Cheyenne. They extracted power cells, circuit arrays, and propulsion components that could be integrated into the Aurora's systems. The work was painstaking but productive. By nightfall, the self-repair progress had accelerated to 63%, and several previously offline systems had been restored to partial functionality. "The dimensional fold drive is now at 72% capacity," Aurora reported as Rafe took a break to eat and rest. "With the current rate of repair, we should achieve full interstellar capability within 36 hours. "And then what?" Rafe asked, voicing the question that had been weighing on his mind. "Once we're fully operational, what's our next move?" Aurora's holographic form sat across from him, her expression thoughtful. "That decision rests primarily with you, Rafe. As a Walker descendant, you are the designated decision-maker for this vessel. But you must have protocols, contingencies for different scenarios." "I do. The primary mission parameters established by Dr. Elias Walker were to preserve Centaurian technology until humanity was ready to use it responsibly, if that condition cannot be met. The secondary parameter is to return the technology to Centaurian space." Rafe considered his options carefully. "The Alliance Incorporation will never stop hunting us. Not with what this ship represents. And if there are Centaurian factions involved too, the stakes are even higher." "A succinct assessment of our situation," Aurora agreed. "What about Providence?" Rafe suggested. "Verity has resources, connections. Maybe she could help us find a more permanent solution." While Providence Station does represent a more neutral faction than either the Alliance or Corporation, it lacks the capability to protect this vessel long-term. Additionally, Verity's primary motivation is information trading, a purpose that might not align with the secure preservation of Centaurian technology. Rafe nodded slowly. "So we're back to the original options. Either find a way to keep the ship hidden on Earth, or return to Centaurian space," Aurora finished for him, "where the technology would be secure, but potentially lost to humanity for centuries." The choice seemed impossible. Keep the ship on Earth, where it would inevitably be discovered and fought over, potentially triggering another catastrophic conflict. Or remove it entirely, depriving humanity of a technology that could transform their civilization for the better if used wisely. Before Rafe could respond, an alert sounded from the command center. "Perimeter sensor activation," Aurora announced, her tone shifting to one of urgency. "Multiple vehicles approaching from the northeast." "Alliance again?" Rafe asked, already moving toward the command center. "Negative. Vehicle configuration matches Resource Corporation tactical units. 12 ground vehicles and 3 aerial support craft." "How did they find us so quickly? I thought the radiation was masking our signature." "It is. However, there are alternative tracking methods they might be employing. Resource Corporation has been developing quantum resonance detectors that can identify specific energy patterns even through significant interference. Rafe cursed under his breath. Can we lift off? Get out of here before they arrive? The propulsion system is at 76% functionality, sufficient for flight, but our maneuverability would be compromised. Additionally, the fold drive is still calibrating after the recent repairs. We cannot execute another jump for approximately 4.3 hours. And the corporation will be here in how long? Estimated arrival, 27 minutes. Not enough time to escape, but perhaps enough to prepare. What about the facility's defenses? Black Mesa was a high-security research installation. There must be something we can use. Aurora's holographic form nodded. The facility's security systems are partially operational. I have accessed the central mainframe and can activate automated defenses, though many are degraded or offline due to lack of maintenance. Whatever's working, use it. And what about those maintenance drones? Can they be modified for defense like the ones at Cheyenne? To a limited extent, yes. They lack the robust architecture of the security drones, but I can repurpose their maintenance tools for defensive applications. Do it, Rafe ordered, and keep the ship powered up for immediate departure if an opportunity presents itself. I'm not planning to let the corporation get their hands on this technology any more than the Alliance. As Aurora redirected resources to preparing their defenses, Rafe studied the layout of the facility more carefully, looking for strategic advantages. The hangar where they had landed connected to a network of research laboratories and administrative areas, many of which could serve as choke points or ambush locations if the corporation forces managed to breach the outer defenses. I've activated the facility's perimeter security system, Aurora reported. Automated turrets are online at 62% efficiency. Additionally, I've reprogrammed the environmental controls to create adverse conditions in key access corridors, extreme temperature variations and localized radiation spikes that will slow their advance. Good. What about our exit strategy? If we can't use the fold drive, we need another way out if things go badly. There is a secondary vehicle exit on the western side of the facility. It emerges into a canyon approximately 1.2 miles from our current position. If we can reach it, the topography would provide cover for an aerial escape. Rafe nodded, committing the route to memory. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. How are the maintenance drones coming along? Modifications at 78% completion. I've converted their precision-cutting tools into short-range energy weapons and repurposed their lifting mechanisms to generate localized force fields. Not as effective as proper combat drones, but they should provide some tactical advantage. The minutes ticked by tensely as they completed their preparations. Through the facility's external cameras, they watched the corporation forces approach, a convoy of armored vehicles bristling with weapons and scanning equipment, flanked by sleek aerial drones that circled overhead like predatory birds. They're deploying ground teams, Aurora observed as the vehicles halted just outside the facility's perimeter. Standard corporation tactical formation, 3-person units with specialized roles. Their equipment appears designed for non-destructive capture, suggesting they want the ship intact. Small favors, Rafe muttered. At least they're not just going to bomb us into oblivion. The first wave of corporation operatives advanced cautiously toward the facility's main entrance, only to be met with precision fire from the automated turrets Aurora had activated. They fell back, regrouping behind their vehicles as they assessed the unexpected resistance. They're adapting quickly, Aurora noted. Deploying countermeasures against the automated systems. Estimated time until perimeter breach, 12 minutes. Then we need to slow them down further. Can you access the facility's public address system? Yes. What do you have in mind? Psychological warfare, Rafe said with a grim smile. Let's make them think they're facing more than just automated defenses. Through the PA system, Aurora broadcast a series of commands and responses that suggested a well-organized defense force was coordinating their efforts throughout the facility. Sounds of movement and weapon fire were strategically played in different areas, creating the impression of a much larger presence than actually existed. The tactic bought them precious time as the corporation forces proceeded more cautiously, clearly concerned about the apparent resistance they were facing. Instead of a direct assault, they began a methodical room-by-room search of the facility, spreading their forces thin as they investigated multiple potential threats. Clever, Aurora acknowledged. They have divided their units to cover more ground, reducing their effective strength at any given point. This will make it easier for our limited defenses to manage individual incursions. How's the fold drive coming? Any chance of accelerating the calibration? I have diverted additional power to the process, but there are physical limitations to how quickly the quantum matrices can stabilize. Current estimate for minimum jump capability, 3.1 hours. Still too long. They needed to hold out against a professional military force with superior numbers and equipment, using nothing but automated defenses and repurposed maintenance tools. The first real engagement came 20 minutes later, when a 3-person corporation team breached the research wing adjacent to their hangar. The modified maintenance drones intercepted them, their improvised weapons surprising the operatives who had expected standard security measures. Through the facility's camera system, Rafe watched as the drones executed Aurora's tactical programming with remarkable efficiency, using their limited capabilities to maximum effect. They didn't defeat the corporation team outright, but they did force them to retreat and regroup, buying more precious time. They're calling for reinforcements, Aurora reported, monitoring the corporation's communications. The team leader is describing unknown technology and requesting specialized equipment for capture. They've figured out we're not just dealing with standard pre-war defenses, Rafe concluded. How long before they adapt their approach? Based on previous tactical patterns, the corporation will likely consolidate their forces for a concentrated push toward the energy signature they're tracking, which leads directly to this hangar. Then we need to move the ship. Even if we can't leave the facility entirely, we can at least make them search longer. A tactical repositioning is possible, Aurora agreed. The research wing includes several large testing chambers that could accommodate the Aurora. Moving there would force them to breach additional security layers before reaching us. Without further discussion, the ship hummed to life, rising smoothly from the hangar floor. Aurora guided it through the massive internal corridors of the facility, navigating carefully to avoid structural damage that might give away their position. They settled in a cavernous chamber that had once been used for testing experimental propulsion systems, ironically appropriate given their situation. The room's thick walls were designed to contain explosive force, which now served to mask the ship's energy signature more effectively than the standard architecture elsewhere in the facility. This position is more defensible, Aurora noted as they powered down to minimal operational levels. The chamber has only 2 access points, both of which can be monitored and defended more effectively than the open hangar. Rafe nodded, studying the tactical display that showed the corporation forces' positions throughout the facility. They were still searching the areas they'd already breached, unaware that their quarry had relocated. How long before they realize we've moved? Their scanning equipment will eventually detect the residual energy trail, but the facility's background radiation will slow the process. Estimated time until they redirect their search, 35-40 minutes. And the fold drive? 2-7 hours until minimum jump capability. Still a significant gap to close. Rafe paced the command center, trying to formulate a plan that would buy them the time they needed. Conventional defense seemed increasingly futile. They were outnumbered and outgunned, with limited resources and no reinforcements coming. Aurora, he said finally, you mentioned that Black Mesa has a partially functioning reactor system, right? The one that had the catastrophic failure? Correct. The primary reactor suffered a containment breach during the technology wars, but the secondary systems remain in standby mode, providing minimal power to critical facility functions. Could those secondary systems be encouraged to experience a similar failure? Not a full meltdown, but enough of a problem to force the corporation to evacuate temporarily. Aurora's holographic form studied him with what looked almost like concern. "You are suggesting a controlled radiation event. Such an action would not be lethal with proper warning, but would render large sections of the facility inaccessible without specialized protection." "Exactly. The corporation troops have radiation gear. I saw it in their equipment. They wouldn't be killed, just forced to fall back and regroup while their commanders decided whether the prize was worth the risk." "The concept has tactical merit," Aurora acknowledged after a moment's calculation. "I can access the reactor control systems and initiate a controlled pressure release in the cooling system. This would create a radiation surge that would spread through the facility's ventilation network, triggering automated warnings and containment protocols. How long would it buy us?" "Conservatively, 1.5 to 2 hours. The corporation would need to evacuate non-essential personnel, reconfigure their equipment for high radiation environments, and develop a new tactical approach." "Do it," Rafe decided. "Make sure they have enough warning to get out safely. I don't want casualties, just delay." Aurora nodded, her form flickering slightly as she interfaced with the facility's ancient control systems. "Initiating cooling system malfunction sequence. Estimated time to radiation event, 12 minutes. Facility-wide warnings will begin in 30 seconds. Almost immediately. Alarm klaxons began to sound throughout the complex, accompanied by an automated voice warning of an imminent reactor safety breach. Through the security cameras, Rafe watched as the corporation forces responded with professional efficiency, immediately beginning an orderly withdrawal toward their vehicles. "They're evacuating as anticipated," Aurora confirmed. "Current projections indicate all personnel will clear the danger zone before radiation levels become hazardous." "Good. Now we just need to weather the storm ourselves. The ship's shielding can handle the radiation." "Yes. Our Centaurian-derived protection systems are designed to withstand conditions far more extreme than what this event will produce. We will experience no adverse effects." For the next 10 minutes, they watched as the corporation completed their evacuation, pulling back to a safe distance from the facility. Then, right on schedule, the reactor's cooling system experienced its malfunction, releasing a controlled burst of radioactive steam into the ventilation network. Radiation warnings throughout the facility spiked from caution to extreme danger, and automated containment doors slammed shut, sealing off affected areas. Outside, the corporation vehicles retreated further, regrouping at their command post nearly a mile from the main entrance. "Radiation event proceeding as calculated," Aurora reported. "The facility's automated systems are responding correctly, containing the worst of the release to non-essential areas. Our position remains secure and unaffected." "And the fold drive?" "The additional time should be sufficient. Current estimate for jump capability, 1.8 hours, which falls within our newly established window of opportunity." For the first time since their escape from Cheyenne, Rafe allowed himself to feel a glimmer of hope. If the plan worked, if the radiation delay gave them enough time to complete the fold drive calibration, they might actually escape. But the corporation wasn't giving up so easily. After an hour of monitoring their communications, Aurora detected a change in their strategy. "They are preparing a specialized team for insertion," she reported. 4 operatives with advanced radiation protection suits and equipment designed specifically for technology retrieval in hazardous environments. "How long until they reach us?" "They are boarding their transport now. Estimated time to arrival at our chamber, 45 minutes. "And the fold drive?" 50 minutes until minimum jump capability." 5 minutes too long. They would be in the middle of the final calibration sequence when the corporation team breached their position. "We need more time," Rafe muttered, studying the facility map for inspiration. "What about the other reactor systems? Could we trigger additional events?" "Negative. The remaining systems have been too thoroughly secured following the initial event. The corporation's cybersecurity specialists have locked down the control networks." Rafe considered their dwindling options. "Then we make our stand here. How many maintenance drones do we have left?" 7 functional units. though their power reserves are at varying levels due to the previous engagements. Position them at strategic points along the corporation's most likely approach. We need to slow them down just enough to complete the calibration. As Aurora deployed the remaining drones, Rafe prepared the ship's minimal defensive systems, the point defense lasers designed for meteoroid deflection, now repurposed for ground combat. They wouldn't stop a determined attack, but they might buy precious seconds. The next 40 minutes passed in tense preparation. Through the facility's cameras, they watched the corporation's specialized team make their way methodically through the radiation-flooded corridors, their bulky protection suits slowing their progress, but not stopping it. They moved with the confidence of elite operatives, clearly familiar with both the risks they faced and the value of what they sought. 5 minutes until they reach our position, Aurora announced. Full drive calibration at 92%. Rafe took his place in the command chair, running through final preparations for their escape. As soon as the drive is ready, execute the jump. Don't wait for my order. Acknowledged. Jump coordinates are set for a position in deep orbit on the far side of Earth's moon. From there, we can assess our situation and determine our next course of action. The first sounds of combat reached them moments later, the distinctive whine of the maintenance drones' improvised weapons, followed by the more substantial reports of the corporation team's specialized equipment. Through the security feeds, Rafe watched as the drones executed their delaying tactics, sacrificing themselves one by one to slow the inexorable advance. Drive calibration at 96%, Aurora reported. Corporation team has breached the outer laboratory. They will reach our chamber in approximately 60 seconds. The massive doors to the testing chamber began to shudder as the corporation team applied breaching charges to the locking mechanism. Rafe activated the point defense lasers, targeting the door's weakest points to create a final obstacle once they broke through. Drive calibration at 98%. With a thunderous boom, the doors blew inward, smoke and debris filling the entrance. Through the haze, 4 figures in advanced environmental suits moved forward with weapons raised. The point defense lasers fired automatically, their precision beams slicing through the smoke to target the intruders' equipment rather than the operatives themselves. 2 of the team were forced to fall back as their scanning devices exploded in showers of sparks. Drive calibration complete. Initiating fold jump. The familiar sensation of reality bending around them began to build, the colors in the chamber inverting as the dimensional fold took effect. The remaining corporation operatives rushed forward, desperately trying to reach the ship before it vanished. One of them made it to within feet of the hull, reaching out as if to touch the alien metal, and then they were gone. The testing chamber replaced by the star-filled blackness of space. Earth's moon filling half the viewport with its cratered surface. Jump successful, Aurora confirmed. We are in lunar orbit. Position secure. No signs of pursuit. Rafe let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. We made it. He stared at the beautiful blue-white curve of Earth visible beyond the moon's horizon. Now what? That decision rests with you. Aurora reminded him. The ship is now fully capable of interstellar travel. We can return to Centaurian space as originally planned, or attempt to find a more permanent solution here in the Sol system. The choice that had seemed impossible before now loomed even larger. Leave Earth behind, taking the Centaurian technology out of human hands entirely, or stay and risk capture, with the potential for another devastating conflict if the technology was weaponized again. Is there a third option? Rafe asked, still gazing at his home planet. Something between removing the technology entirely and letting it fall into the wrong hands. Aurora was silent for a moment, processing. There is a theoretical possibility that has not been fully explored. The Aurora contains complete records of Dr. Walker's original agreement with the Centaurians, the ethical frameworks and limitations that were established for the use of their technology, if these protocols could be implemented on a wider scale. A new set of rules, Rafe said, understanding dawning. Not controlled by the Alliance or the corporation, but by an independent body with the actual capability to enforce them. Precisely. In essence, a reimagining of Dr. Walker's original vision, controlled introduction of advanced technology with built-in safeguards against militarization. And who would be this independent body? Providence. They're traders, not peacekeepers? No, Aurora said, her holographic form moving to stand beside him as they both gazed at Earth. But there are others who might qualify. The independent settlements that have emerged in the borderlands. The scientific enclaves that have maintained neutrality throughout the conflicts. Even elements within both the Alliance and Corporation who recognize the dangers of unrestricted technological advancement. A coalition, Rafe mused, bringing together everyone who has a stake in preventing another war. It would not be easy, Aurora cautioned. The powerful rarely relinquish control willingly. Both the Alliance and Corporation would resist any attempt to limit their access to advanced technology. But if they were given alternatives, technologies that improved life without military applications, they might be persuaded. A diplomatic solution rather than removal or capitulation. It aligns with the original Centaurian approach. Graduated technology transfer based on demonstrated responsibility. Rafe nodded slowly, the beginnings of a plan forming in his mind. We need allies, people who understand what's at stake and have the resources to help implement this new framework. Verity at Providence would be a logical starting point, Aurora suggested. Despite her focus on information trading, her network extends throughout the borderlands, and she has already demonstrated interest in Centaurian technology for its scientific rather than military value. There are others too, Rafe added. Independent researchers I've encountered in my travels. Former Alliance scientists who left when they saw the direction their work was taking. Even that scavenger who spotted us in the canyon, people like him understand the value of technology beyond weapons. Then you have made your decision, Aurora asked. We will remain in Earth orbit and attempt to build this coalition. Rafe took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility that his ancestor must have felt a century ago. Yes, but with one condition. If it fails, if we can't establish this framework and the technology risks falling into the wrong hands again, we implement the backup plan. We take the Aurora to Centaurian space and let humanity develop on its own timeline. A reasonable compromise, Aurora agreed. And one I believe Dr. Walker would have approved. For several minutes, they remained in silence, watching as Earth rotated slowly beneath them. From this distance, there were no visible signs of the conflicts that had shaped human history, no borders between Alliance and Corporation territory, no scars from the technology wars, just a beautiful blue planet, still full of potential despite its troubled past. Set course for Providence Station, Rafe finally said. Low approach, minimal energy signature. Let's see if Verity is interested in changing the world. As the ship turned gracefully, accelerating toward Earth with renewed purpose. Rafe reflected on how dramatically his life had changed in just a few days. He had gone from a desperate scavenger, hunting for technology scraps in the desert, to perhaps the most important mediator in human history, a bridge between Earth and the stars. The desert below seemed tiny now, a mere patch in the vast landscape of possibilities that stretched before him. When the ship had first reacted to his voice, everything had changed, not just for him, but potentially for all of humanity. Whether that change would lead to salvation or destruction remained to be seen, but for the first time in a century, there was a chance to get it right. Aurora's holographic form stood beside him, her presence a reminder of the extraordinary technology they now controlled, and the responsibility that came with it. The Centaurians have a saying, she offered. The future is not discovered, but created by those with both the power to act and the wisdom to choose. Rafe nodded, watching as Earth grew larger in the viewport, his home and his challenge. Then let's create a better one this time.